Hello everyone and welcome to Sentence Diagramming 101. This video is about chapter 6, which is all about clauses. So just to let you know, a clause is when you have a group of words that includes a subject and a verb. If you have a group of words that's missing either a subject or it's missing a verb, then that is called a phrase, like prepositional phrase, appositive phrase, gerund phrase, infinitive phrase, all the phrases. But if you have a subject and a verb, and the subject is the main idea and the verb is actually a verb, then that is going to be called a clause. So like I am, clause. And clauses, while you're here, come in two flavors. They come in independent, meaning they are complete sentences in and of themselves, and dependent, which means that they need another sentence in order to function. So you're like, I am is an independent thought. You know, it's very philosophical of you, but it is a complete independent clause. If you just say, you know, Joe is, I'm like, all right, Joe exists. That's good. This cheesecake is delicious. Cool. But what if you add an extra word to the beginning of your sentence? What if you add a because? Because I am. It's like, because I am what? Or because I am why? You know, you need the rest of the idea. So this has become a dependent clause. It needs something else in order to be complete. And what English does is it stacks. We put two clauses together, generally an independent and a dependent, in order to complete that sentence. So we're like, until Joe is what? We're like, until Joe is, you know, ready, we can't leave. We're like, oh, okay, so I have two clauses. Until Joe is ready is a dependent, and then we can't leave is an independent, because we can't leave can be a sentence on its own. So when you're dealing with clauses, dependent clauses for the most part, you can break them into three different types. There are adverb clauses, which are going to do adverby things, right? They'll tell you how, where, when, why, or in what manner. Or there'll be adjective clauses. So they tell you which one or how many, those adjective questions. Or noun clauses, and they can do all the noun things. So, just like gerunds are verbs acting as nouns, noun clauses can also act as nouns. They're just more than one word, and those words happen to include a subject and a verb, making them a clause. So this video is going to cover adverb clauses. So this is 6a. Now, an adverb clause, usually they are easier to spot because they start with a subordinating conjunction, a word like after, until, because, since, which, when, while. There are a lot of subordinate conjunctions. Just Google it if you are in doubt, but a lot of the time they're easier to find. And then they're going to modify the main verb in the sentence, but they can also perhaps modify an adjective or another adverb. So if you look at this sentence, you're like, because they have nothing to lose, the Goonies decide to follow the treasure map. Oh, this is all about Goonies, the wonderful 80s movie about treasure, and a very, very young Sean Astin. If you haven't seen it, it's a good time. Okay. So they have nothing to lose. Because is a subordinating conjunction, and then they have nothing. That's your sentence, subject, verb, object. The Goonies, second clause, subject, decide, and then what do they decide? To follow the map. So that whole thing is an infinitive acting as the direct object. So you have a clause, and what is this telling me? Because they have nothing to lose, it tells me why. Why do they decide to follow the map? Because they have nothing to lose. So adverb clauses will answer the question why. They might also tell you how, right? The Goonies work together, although they didn't always agree. So that's, how do they work together? You know, even though they don't agree, they still work together. Or in what manner? If you go starving because he's been kidnapped, why is he starving? Because he's been kidnapped. So we're describing the adjective starving. And then Chunk shares his candy bar. And then the bond between the Goonies is stronger than it was. So you've got these subordinating conjunctions then, because, although, that clue you in that you're looking at an adverb clause. Now, what else? Oh, he fights harder than his brother does. So his brother does is going to be your second sentence dependent clause. Mikey fights. Harder is how, adjective, but that's an independent clause. So you've got one of each. And then Mikey fights. How does he fight? As though keeping his home requires his success. Now, a cool thing about adverb clauses is a lot of the time you can flip them, meaning you can start with a sentence that says, because they have nothing to lose, the Goonies decide to follow the treasure map. You could also say, the Goonies decide to follow the treasure map because they have nothing to lose. So the meaning is the same. It hasn't changed. So a lot of the time in an adverb clause, you can flip it. Also, comma rule, you know, if you have a dependent clause at the beginning of a sentence, it gets a comma. If you have a dependent clause at the end of a sentence, it doesn't get a comma. Basically, if it starts with because, you'll have a comma in the middle. If there's a because in the middle, you will not have a comma. But you can review comma rules on our website. What else? Yeah, you can flip stuff around. Although they didn't always agree, the Goonies work together. Chunk, starving because he's been kidnapped, still shares his candy bar. So adverb clauses, there's some mobility. You can move them. Now what you care about is diagramming. So basically you have two sentences, so you have two lines. So this would be the first part, you know, the bond between the Goonies is stronger than, you know, and then it was before. And the way that you join these together is you put the independent clause on top, regardless of how it comes in the sentence. Independent clause on top, dependent clause on the bottom. You draw a dotted vertical line connecting the verbs, and on that dotted line, you write the adverb that is connecting them. So in this case, it would be because, or than, or until. Your subordinating conjunction you're going to write for an adverb clause. So let's see. So you've got the Goonies decide, what do they do to fall on the map? That is your independent clause, and then they have nothing to lose is your dependent clause, and you put because on the line there. So Goonies work together, it's going to be your independent, and then they didn't agree, it's going to be your dependent, and then you put an although in between them. Keeping it going, you've got starving. How is he starving, or why is he starving? Because he has been kidnapped. And then the bond is stronger, and then it was. So you've got a then. So basically you join adverb clauses together with the independent clause on top, dependent clause on the bottom, and you write the subordinating conjunction on the dotted line. Yeah, you've got a couple more examples here about different, you know, Mikey's fighting. He's fighting harder, and then he fights as though. So both of those, Mikey fights, is your independent clause. So remember that adverb clauses will tell you adverb things. They'll tell you where, why, when, how, in what manner, to what extent, those kinds of things. And they're diagrammed verb to verb. Now, if you want to practice, you could do exercise 6A, check your answers against the answer key, or watch the video overview of 6A. And that has been adverb clauses.